If the galaxy feared one species more than war, more than black holes, more than extinction itself, it was humans. And on the frozen wasteland of Carthos 9, one alien woman was about to learn why. Welcome to my channel, the world of science fiction. Don't forget to like and subscribe. The storm on Carthos 9 did not howl. It screamed. Winds tore across the frozen plains like invisible blades. Lightning cracked across a sky the color of bruised steel. The planet had once been marked as resource-rich. Now it was marked as abandoned. Rusted war machines lay half-buried in ice like ancient skeletons. Through the chaos, a silver escape pod punched through the clouds. It was not landing. It was falling. The pod struck the ground hard enough to split the ice open. Metal screamed. Sparks burst into the storm. From the wreckage crawled a figure. Commander Vilara of the Serathi Dominion dragged herself across the frozen ground. Her skin shimmered faintly violet beneath cracked armor. One of her 4 ocular lenses flickered and died. Her breathing was uneven. Her blood, glowing faint blue, stained the snow. Her mission had failed. Her squad was gone. Her last transmission had been cut off mid-sentence. And worst of all, she was stranded on a planet rumored to be occupied by a human survivor. Humans. The species her people described with one word: unpredictable. Vilara tried to stand and collapsed again. Her neural display flickered weakly. A faint heat signature pulsed 300 meters away. Shelter. If she did not reach it, she would freeze. If she did reach it, she might meet something worse. She staggered forward anyway. Because soldiers did not die crawling. They died standing. The structure looked like it had lost a fight with gravity and barely survived. 3 cargo containers welded together. Solar panels bent at strange angles. Antennas patched with wire and tape. Steam vented from one side. Inside, someone was alive. Vilara reached the door and slammed her fist against it before darkness swallowed her vision. Inside the shelter, Joran Hale was arguing with a kettle. "I swear," he muttered, tightening a bolt with a wrench, "if you explode again, I'm turning you into scrap art." The proximity alarm blared. Joran froze. Slowly, he grabbed a metal pipe. He moved toward the door and opened the external camera feed. He blinked. "Well," he said softly, "that's new." An alien woman lay face down in the snow. He stared at her for a long moment. His options were simple. Ignore her. Survive alone. Or open the door. Risk everything. Joran sighed. "Fine. But if this gets me vaporized, I'm complaining loudly." He opened the hatch and dragged her inside. When Vilara awoke, warmth wrapped around her. That confused her more than pain. Her eyes snapped open. Metal walls. Dim yellow lights. The hum of machinery. And a human standing across the room. He froze when she moved. They stared at each other. Vilara's heart pounded. Her hand reached for a weapon that was no longer there. The human raised both hands. "Easy," he said calmly. "You were dying outside. I figured that was bad." His voice was steady. Not afraid. That unsettled her more than aggression would have. "You are human," she said slowly. "Last I checked." She sat up sharply despite the pain. Her people had warned her about humans. They were chaotic. Emotionally unstable. Capable of irrational bravery. She scanned the room quickly. Tools everywhere. Repaired machinery. Improvised systems running far beyond safe limits. This human was surviving on a dead planet with scrap. That alone was concerning. "You helped me," she said cautiously. "Yeah," he replied. Seemed polite. Polite. The word did not match the war reports. "Why?" she demanded. He shrugged. "Because leaving someone to freeze is a terrible way to start the day." Vilara studied him carefully. He was unarmed. Relaxed. And dangerously calm. "You know what I am." "Alien," he said. "Obviously." The glowing blood gave it away. She expected hostility. Instead, He walked to a heater unit and adjusted it slightly. "You're safe here," he added. "For now." Safe. The word hit her strangely. She had not felt safe in years. "You do not fear me?" she asked. Joran gave a small smile. "Should I? I am HFY military." "Okay. I have killed humans." He paused, then nodded once. "War's ugly." That was it. No rage. No shouting. Just simple acknowledgement. Vilara felt something unfamiliar stir inside her. Confusion. Hours passed. The storm outside continued its violent symphony. Inside, the shelter felt stable. Joran handed her a steaming metal cup. "It's protein broth," he said. "Don't ask what's in it." She sniffed it cautiously. It smelled terrible. She drank anyway. Her body needed fuel. "You are alone here?" she asked. "Yep." "For how long?" 3 years. Give or take. 3 years. On a frozen war graveyard. Her people rotated elite survival teams every 6 months on less hostile worlds. "You repaired all this yourself?" she asked, looking around. "Most of it," he said. "The solar array hates me. The fusion cell hates everyone." She looked closer at his systems. He had rewired a mining reactor into a sustainable energy core. He had converted old drone parts into heating units. He had patched structural cracks with layered composite resin. Improvised. Unapproved. Brilliant. "You are not military," she observed. "Engineer," he corrected. That explained it. Humans did not simply fight. They adapted. She suddenly remembered something from classified briefings. When human units were cut off from supply lines, their efficiency increased. When cornered, their innovation spiked. When facing extinction, they became terrifying. A sudden beep interrupted the silence. Joran stiffened. "That's not good," he muttered. He moved to a console. Vilara forced herself to stand and joined him. The scanner showed 4 heat signatures moving through the storm. Her breath stopped. "HFY Retrieval Squad," she whispered. Joran glanced at her. "They looking for you?" "Yes." "Friendly?" She hesitated. "If they find me here with you, they will assume I have been captured. And they will eliminate the threat." He looked at her. "And I'm the threat." "Yes." The storm outside began to weaken, which meant visibility would improve, which meant the squad would see the shelter. Joran leaned back slightly. "Well," he said calmly, "that's inconvenient." Vilara stared at him. "You do not understand. They are elite soldiers." "Okay. They will destroy this structure." "Probably. You will die." He scratched his chin thoughtfully. "Not ideal." She stepped closer. "You must send me out. Tell them I forced entry." He looked directly into her eyes. "No." The answer was immediate. She blinked. "You owe me nothing," she insisted. "Maybe not," he said. "But I didn't drag you in here just to throw you back out." The scanner beeped again. Closer now. Vilara felt something shift inside her chest. For the first time in years, someone had chosen her survival over their own safety. "Why?" she asked quietly. Joran's expression changed. It was not reckless. It was not arrogant. It was something else. "Because," he said softly, "humans are stubborn like that." Outside, the storm cleared completely. 4 armored figures appeared on the horizon. Inside the fragile shelter on a dead world, an alien commander realized something dangerous. The human was not trapped with her. Her squad was trapped with him. The HFY Retrieval Squad moved like shadows across the ice. 4 figures in black combat armor, visors glowing faint green, weapons held steady. They did not rush. They did not hesitate. Their movements were clean, precise, efficient. Vilara watched them through the cracked lens of Joran's scanner, her heart beating faster with every step they took toward the shelter. They are not here to negotiate, she said quietly. Joran leaned closer to the screen, chewing the inside of his cheek. Good, he replied. Negotiations are awkward. She turned sharply toward him. You do not understand the danger. Oh, I understand danger, he said calmly. I've been surviving on this planet for 3 years. Danger and I are on a first-name basis. Outside, one of the HFY soldiers raised a scanning device. A pulse of blue light swept across the frozen ground. They'll detect the heat from your fusion cell, Vilara warned. Already thought of that. Joran moved quickly to another console and flipped 3 switches. The hum of the shelter dropped to a whisper. Lights dimmed. The heater reduced to minimal output. You're shutting down your power, she asked. Not shutting down. Redirecting, he corrected. He opened a panel in the floor and revealed a narrow shaft beneath. You built an underground system? Vilara asked, surprised. Emergency heat vents and exhaust tunnels. Also doubles as storage. And occasionally a place to hide when things get spicy. Vilara stared at him. You prepared for this? He gave a small shrug. When you live alone long enough, paranoia becomes a hobby. Another pulse from outside. This one closer. A voice crackled faintly through the HFY squad's external speakers. Vilara recognized the tone instantly. Commander Threx. Cold. Calculating. Unforgiving. Commander Vilara, the voice echoed through the thin air. You are ordered to present yourself. Joran raised an eyebrow. They sound friendly. They are not, Vilara replied. The squad spread out around the shelter. One positioned behind a broken satellite tower. Another moved to higher ground. They were preparing for assault. Vilara's pulse quickened. Her training screamed at her to step outside, to take responsibility, to prevent civilian casualties. I must go, she said firmly. Joran blocked the hatch. No. You cannot fight them. Who said anything about fighting? He asked. Outside, one of the HFY soldiers fired a small probe. It landed near the shelter and began scanning. Joran glanced at it through the camera feed. Ah, he said softly. They brought toys. He tapped rapidly on his console. Vilara watched as his systems came alive, not louder, but smarter. What are you doing? She demanded. Borrowing their signal. He adjusted a frequency dial and connected an improvised antenna array made from scrap metal and wiring. The probe outside flickered. Then glitched. Commander Threx's voice cut out mid-command. Vilara stared at the screen. You are interfering with HFY military encryption. Yep. That is impossible. Joran smirked slightly. Nothing's impossible. Just complicated. The probe suddenly overloaded and burst into harmless sparks. The squad stiffened outside. Their formation tightened. They will escalate, Vilara warned. Good, Joran replied again. He reached into a storage crate and pulled out 3 small metallic spheres. What are those? She asked. Mining drones, he said. Repurposed. For what purpose? You'll see. He rolled one down the access ramp that led out from the lower shaft beneath the shelter. It disappeared into the snow. Seconds later, the ground 50 meters away exploded upward in a spray of ice. Not a deadly explosion. A distraction. The HFY squad instantly turned toward the blast site. Another sphere rolled silently behind them and detonated, launching a wave of snow into the air. Their formation broke. They are reacting exactly as trained, Joran observed calmly. Which is the problem? Vilara felt something strange rising in her chest. Hope. They will adapt, she warned. Of course they will, he replied. So will we. The third drone activated. But this one did not explode. It emitted a high-frequency pulse. The HFY visors flickered. Their HUD systems distorted. For a few seconds, their perfect coordination fractured. Joran took advantage immediately. He rerouted the fusion cell's excess energy into the ground grid he had secretly built beneath the shelter months ago. Lines of buried conductive wire, hidden under ice and scrap. He pressed one final switch. The ground beneath the HFY squad erupted in bright arcs of electric discharge. Not enough to kill, but enough to disable their suits temporarily. 3 soldiers dropped to one knee. Commander Threx remained standing, but barely. Vilara stared at Joran in disbelief. You built a defensive grid across half a kilometer. Boredom is powerful motivation, he said. Outside, Threx regained partial control and raised his weapon toward the shelter. Before he could fire, Joran activated the last part of his plan. From the ridge behind the squad, a large shape rose from beneath the snow. It was an old cargo loader mech. Rust covered most of it. Half its plating was missing, but its core still functioned. Joran had repaired it months ago, just in case. The mech took one heavy step forward. Its shadow stretched across the ice. The HFY squad froze. Threx recalculated. This was no longer a simple retrieval. This was a fortified human stronghold. Vilara watched Threx carefully. She knew that look. He was weighing losses. The mission objective was her recovery, not total annihilation. After a long, tense moment, Threx lowered his weapon. The squad began retreat protocol. They withdrew in disciplined silence, dragging their damaged probe units behind them. Within minutes, they disappeared into the distant snowfields. Silence returned. Only the wind remained. Inside the shelter, Vilara exhaled slowly. You did not kill them, she said. Didn't need to, Joran replied. Winning doesn't always mean destroying. She turned toward him fully. You protected me. Seems that way. You risked your life. He shrugged again, but this time it looked heavier. Guess I did. Vilara studied the human carefully. He had outsmarted an elite HFY retrieval squad using scrap metal, rewired mining tools, and careful planning. No rage. No cruelty. Just creativity. Her people had labeled humans dangerous. They were right. But not in the way they thought. Humans were dangerous because they refused to give up. Because they adapted faster than fear could stop them. Because even alone on a frozen graveyard planet, they built. They prepared. They endured. And when the storm came, they did not run. Vilara stepped closer. My people will return, she said quietly. With greater force. Joran nodded. Yeah. Figured. She held his gaze. If they do, they will not underestimate you again. He gave a faint smile. Good. I hate being underestimated. Outside, far beyond the horizon, a HFY warship adjusted its orbit. Inside that ship, Commander Threx transmitted a classified report. Subject: human survivor. Assessment: highly resourceful. Strategically unpredictable. Extreme adaptive threat potential. Recommendation: escalation. Back in the small shelter on Carthos 9, Vilara realized something even more important. The human had not just defended himself. He had shown her something her own empire had forgotten. Strength was not about domination. It was about resilience. And humans were relentless. The next storm was not coming from the sky. It was coming from orbit. And this time, survival would require more than clever traps. It would require something far more powerful. Unity. The warship in orbit was not subtle. It slid across the sky like a blade. Black. Silent. Immense. Vilara saw it first. Her breath slowed, but her pulse did not. That is not a retrieval ship, she said quietly. Joran stepped outside the shelter and looked up. Well, he muttered, squinting against the light, that's excessive. The HFY warship adjusted position directly above the frozen plains. A beam of scanning light poured down like a spotlight from judgment itself. Inside the shelter, systems flickered. Joran moved quickly to his console. They're mapping everything, he said. Power signatures, underground grid, probably my bad cooking habits too. Vilara's voice was steady now. Soldier, steady. They will not risk ground combat again. They will eliminate the area from orbit. Joran stopped typing for a second. Define eliminate. Everything within a 5-kilometer radius. He stared at her. That includes us. Yes. Silence stretched between them. Outside, the beam intensified. The ice around the shelter began to steam. Vilara straightened. I will go out, she said. I will surrender. They will not fire if I comply. Joran shook his head. You don't know that. I know my people. And I know people, he replied firmly. Fear makes everyone reckless. She stepped closer. You cannot fight a warship. He gave her a small, strange smile. No, he said. But I can annoy it. She blinked. Annoy it. He turned back to his systems and began typing faster than she thought possible. You said earlier your people rely on structured command protocols, he said. Yes. And tight communication chains. Yes. And centralized authority. Yes. He nodded. Good. The fusion core began to hum louder. The shelter lights flickered violently. Vilara stared at the console. You are overloading your reactor. Not overloading, he corrected. Broadcasting. To whom? To everyone. Her eyes widened. You cannot. But he already had. The fusion core's redirected energy surged into the long-range antenna array he had quietly been repairing for years. A signal burst from the frozen surface of Carthos 9. Not a distress call. A data packet. Encrypted. Complex. Brilliant. What did you send? She demanded. Joran didn't look up. Everything. Above them, inside the HFY warship, alarms began to sound. The data stream had penetrated their communication net. It was not a virus. It was worse. It was information. Blueprints. Energy designs. Improvised survival schematics. Adaptive combat algorithms created from mining drone code. Human engineering solutions that broke every predictable model. Vilara stared at Joran in disbelief. You are giving them your technology. Not just them, he said calmly. Everyone listening. The signal spread beyond HFY channels. It reached merchant relays. Independent colonies. Neutral systems. Even rival empires. A simple message followed the data. Humanity does not seek extinction. Humanity adapts. Humanity survives. And humanity shares. On the warship, Commander Threx watched in growing unease. The human had not launched a weapon. He had launched an idea. The HFY Empire thrived on control of knowledge. Technology was restricted. Shared only through rank. Power came from secrecy. But this human had just broken that balance. Within minutes, responses began flooding across the galactic network. Independent worlds downloaded the designs. Colonies saw new ways to survive hostile planets. Engineers studied human adaptive grids. Military analysts recalculated threat assessments. The warship above Carthos 9 received a direct transmission from HFY High Command. Hold position. Do not engage. Reassess strategic value of target. Threx felt something unfamiliar. Doubt. On the ground, Vilara watched the sky carefully. The warship's beam shut off. Its weapons powered down. It did not fire. Joran leaned back in his chair and exhaled. There, he said quietly. You risked empowering your enemies, Vilara said. He nodded. Maybe. That is illogical. He turned to her fully. Maybe where you come from, he said. But humans learn something the hard way. And what is that? That walls don't keep you safe forever. But bridges. He gave a small smile. Bridges change the map. The warship slowly began to rise higher into orbit. Not retreating. but no longer attacking. Vilara felt something shift inside her again. Not fear. Not confusion. Respect. You did not win by force, she said. Nope. You did not surrender. Nope. You changed the battlefield. He shrugged lightly. Fighting is easy. Changing minds? That's harder. A new transmission came through the shelter console. HFY High Command. Vilara stepped forward and accepted the channel. A senior voice filled the room. Commander Vilara. Status. She glanced at Joran. Then back at the screen. Alive, she said. And the human. She hesitated only a second. Also alive. A pause. Assessment. She looked at the patched walls. The improvised systems. The human who had faced extinction with sarcasm and circuitry. Humanity, she said carefully, is not the threat we believed. Another pause. Explain. Vilara lifted her chin. They are not conquerors by nature. They are survivors. And survivors build. Silence stretched across the transmission. Finally, High Command responded. Stand down. Diplomatic envoy will be dispatched. The channel closed. Vilara exhaled slowly. Joran blinked. Diplomatic envoy, he repeated. She nodded. It appears, you have forced my people to reconsider their assumptions. He leaned back and laughed softly. All that from a broken toaster and bad soup. Outside, the warship shifted further away, holding position at a respectful distance. The sky over Carthos 9 was no longer filled with threat. It was filled with possibility. Vilara stepped outside the shelter and looked across the frozen wasteland. The planet was still harsh. Still broken. But now, it was no longer a graveyard. Joran joined her. So, he said casually, what happens now? She looked at him thoughtfully. Now, she replied, we build something neither of our people expected. Which is? She allowed herself a small, genuine smile. Trust. Far beyond the atmosphere, across star systems and empires, the human signal continued spreading. Engineers studied it. Young cadets questioned old doctrines. Worlds that had never spoken began opening channels. And somewhere in the vast silence of space, a quiet truth settled. Humanity's greatest weapon was never its ships. Never its guns. Never its armies. It was creativity. It was resilience. It was the stubborn refusal to die quietly. On a frozen planet once marked abandoned, an alien commander and a human engineer stood side by side. Not as enemies. Not as prisoners. But as proof of something far more powerful. When humanity faces impossible odds, humanity does not collapse. Humanity adapts. And the galaxy adapts with it.